Hello, welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today we're going to be doing our 32nd D&D 3.5 Prestige Class review, and we're going to be looking at the Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil from the Complete Arcane Sourcebook. The Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil studies the different layers of the Prismatic Wall and Prismatic Sphere spell one by one, starting with the red and ending with the violet. These different colors, this rainbow of abjuration magic, seems to be something very primal to D&D's magic system, so it's something that the Initiate of Sevenfold Veil is able to delve more deeply into. The Initiates of the Sevenfold Veil form a sort of loose fellowship. They will recognize each other, but they certainly aren't all allies, and they can be of any alignment. To become an Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil, you're going to need 12 ranks in Knowledge Arcana, 4 ranks in Knowledge Nature, and 12 ranks in Spellcraft. This will be easily achievable for a wizard, but less so for a sorcerer and a lot of other arcane spellcasting classes. You're going to need Greater Spell Focus Abjuration, Regular Spell Focus in Abjuration, and Skill Focus in Spellcraft. As a note, the Master Specialist Prestige class will get you a couple of these feats, but that does require you to go into that Prestige class as well. Lastly, you're going to need to be able to cast 5 Abjuration spells, including at least 2 of 4th level or higher. So as soon as you are a 7th level wizard, you'll be able to meet this prerequisite, assuming that you have been keeping up with your Abjuration spells. And most wizards that reach this level probably will have 5 Abjuration spells in their spellbook already. The 12 ranks in Spellcraft and Knowledge Arcana are going to be a little bit more difficult. That's going to keep you from getting into this Prestige class until after level 9. Overall, I'd rate this Prestige class's requirements as pretty restrictive. You are going to need full ranks in 2 different skills and some in a third, and you are going to need 3 feats. While they aren't bad feats to take, Skill Focus tends to be something that spellcasters leave until epic levels when they need it for epic spellcasting, and taking Spell Focus Abjuration, let alone Greater Spell Focus Abjuration, isn't going to be too common, seeing as most Abjuration spells focus on boosting saving throws rather than forcing them. That said, the payoff is going to be more than worth the investment here, and you will still have a couple of feats left over, especially if you play human, so your wizard character is not going to feel too constrained by the requirements for this Prestige class. As an Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil, you're going to have a d4 hit die, base attack bonus equal to half your level, and a Goodwill save. This is going to be pretty much exactly the same as the wizard class you're already progressing through. You're going to have just about the same skills. The skill list is pretty much exactly the same. You get 2+ intelligence modifier skill points per level, and at each of the 7 levels of this Prestige class, you increase your existing arcane spellcasting level by 1. So you are going to continue your spellcasting progression at every level of this class. While this is one of the few classes that could actually justify taking away a couple of levels of your spellcasting, the fact that it keeps it in for all 7 is fantastic, and in many ways it's an indictment of other classes with far less powerful and useful features that do take away some of those levels of spellcasting. So at level 1, an Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil can create a Warding. This is a spell-like ability. You choose one veil that you know, one of the colors, to be imbued in the warding. And it lasts a certain amount of time as indicated in its description. It's dismissible, and you can create one of 3 types. So you can create a personal warding, which is just going to affect you. It's going to be of a diameter equal to your space, and it's going to encapsulate you. Any creature that tries to attack you with a melee weapon or a natural attack is going to be subjected to its effect. However, a creature with a reach weapon is not going to be subjected to that. So this is going to be not so useful for creatures with pole arms, but for large creatures with natural attacks, they're still going to be affected by whatever the warding effect is. It also provides you with concealment, which is excellent. That's effectively saving you thousands of gold pieces on a Cloak of Displacement right there. But you can see out of it with no hindrance, so it's not going to have any downside to you, and it's going to last for 1 minute or until dismissed. There's also the area warding, which is going to affect all squares adjacent to you as well as yourself. Moving out of the warding is not going to cause any problems, but if anybody enters it, even if they started inside of it and then left it and try to go back, they're going to be subject to the effects of it. So if you're inside of one of these wardings, one of your allies, once they leave, they cannot come back in. And as with the personal warding, you cannot force a creature to pass through. The warding is going to provide concealment to all creatures inside, and they're not going to be affected at all negatively by it. And any creature that is attacked while within the warding with a melee or natural attack is going to have that attacker suffer whatever effect is attached to the warding. And then lastly, there is the wall. This is going to be a wall up to 10 feet long and 5 feet high per initiate class level. So up to eventually 70 feet long and 35 feet high when you finish out this prestige class. It can be made smaller, but otherwise you can't shape it. So it has to be just like a straight line. It has to begin within 30 feet of you, but it can extend beyond that distance. And once you create it, it's immobile. It doesn't move with you like the others. And this is going to last 10 minutes per level or until dismissed. And the save DC for a warding is going to be the same as the spell would be. 18 plus your primary spellcasting ability modifier. And the spell level equivalent is going to depend on which veil you attach to it. So the veils you're going to gain throughout your levels in this prestige class, starting with the red at first level, the orange at second, the yellow at third, and so on until the violet veil at 7th level. The red veil is the first veil that you learn. If you imbue your warding with this veil, it's going to block all non-magical ranged attacks and missiles, which is excellent. And a creature that crosses it, either by trying to grapple you or by striking you with a natural attack or melee attack, is going to take 20 points of fire damage with a successful reflex save for half. And this ward can be destroyed by a Cone of Cold spell. This is like a prismatic sphere or prismatic wall spell. It imitates it very closely. But it allows you to do this as a spell-like ability. Now at the start, this is going to be once per day, but at each odd-numbered level of this prestige class, you're going to get an additional use per day, up to a maximum of 4 uses per day of warding at level 7. So that will be helpful to you. At level 2, you're going to learn the Orange Veil. This is going to stop magical ranged attacks. This is going to include spells that conjure missiles or create rays, but not spells that don't require range attacks. So magic missiles will still go through this. And if a creature crosses an Orange Veil, they take 40 points of acid damage with reflex save for half. And a Gust of Wind spell is going to be able to destroy this layer of your warding. At level 3, you're going to gain the Yellow Veil, which is going to protect you from gases and clouds, and it's also going to defeat petrification attacks. And any creatures inside are going to have immunity to poison, as well as any creature that crosses the veil is going to take 80 points of electricity damage. Disintegrate spell will destroy this veil, but it's going to be negated in the process. And this is true of all the other spells that are going to be necessary to defeat these various veils. At level 4, you master the Green Veil. This is going to protect you from breath weapons, so that's going to be separate from gases and clouds, just to be clear. And a creature crossing the Green Veil is going to need to succeed on a Fortitude save or die. And on a successful save, they're going to take a d6 points of Constitution damage. So while the direct damage is quite nice, the fact of being able to simply force a save or die effect that even on a failed save is going to do some Constitution damage guaranteed is really nice. This is a poison effect, so demons and the like are going to be immune, as are creatures that are immune to death effects. A Pass Wall spell will destroy a Green Veil, but odds are most of the enemies you run into aren't going to have that. At level 5, you unlock the Blue Veil. This is going to block all divinations and mind-affecting spells and abilities. Any creature crossing a Blue Veil has to succeed on a Fortitude save or be petrified. And this is going to be something that a lot fewer creatures are immune to. A simple magic missile spell will defeat this warding, but it is negated by it, so you'll at least be protected from that magic missile. The Indigo Veil you learn at 6th level is going to prevent the passage of all spells and spell-like abilities. Any creature crossing an indigo veil must succeed on a will save or become confused, as if by an insanity spell, which has a permanent duration. And the indigo veil can be only destroyed by a daylight spell. So this is going to protect you from all spells and spell-like abilities. So even powerful high-level monsters that can realize what's going to happen to them, perhaps, or even they attack you a couple of times in your party and realize that it's not such a good idea, they fall back and they attempt to pepper you with spells. You're going to be protected from those unless they have a daylight spell. And finally, at level 7, you gain the Violet Veil. This barrier destroys all objects and effects that cross it as if they were disintegrated. And any living creature that passes through the veil has to succeed on a will save or be shifted to a random place on a random plane, as per the final effect of a prismatic spray or prismatic wall. A Dispel Magic spell will destroy Violet Veil, but if the creature that you're up against doesn't have one, then they're not going to be able to do very much to you. So these abilities can really trivialize a lot of opponents that you'll face in D&D 3.5, unless they have a very good spellcraft skill or knowledge arcana skill. A lot of these creatures might see the effect and assume that it's some kind of magic, but they don't know necessarily what it is. They'll attack you, and they will suffer one of these very dreadful effects. Even the basic one, I mean, even at level 10, being able to, for 1 minute per level, effectively have Fire Shield on yourself and potentially all of your allies is going to be really nice. Yes, having all of you grouped close together will make you a target for fireball spells, but those aren't too common. And later on, especially when you get the Indigo Veil at around level 15, you're going to be completely immune to these abilities that a lot of monsters are going to be able to throw against you. There aren't very many things that can defeat an initiate of the Sevenfold Veil. Simply put, if your characters are up against just a dungeon full of random monsters, or a faction that's unprepared for you, unless they happen to have access to a lot of these spells, and some of them, like Magic Missile and Dispel Magic, are commonly going to be in the arsenal of enemies that you fight, but other ones, such as Pass Wall or Daylight, are going to be a lot less common, unless your group is a bunch of undead fighting against holy clerics. You're probably not going to run into that very much. Now, intelligent opponents with access to powerful magic are going to be able to defeat an initiate pretty easily, or at the very least be able to negate a lot of their abilities. Dispel Magic, I believe, automatically will succeed against the Violet Veil. A Daylight spell isn't too difficult to find for a capable spellcaster, both Cleric and Wizard Sorcerer. And this isn't something that's going to necessarily work against the, so-called end boss of the campaign if they are a powerful and resourceful spellcaster, but these are going to be very, very powerful effects, and unsuspecting foes are just going to be trivial for your party to take down. So let's take a look at some of the other abilities you get from this prestige class. At level 1, you're also going to gain Unimpeachable Abjuration. You're going to add your class level to the DC to dispel any abjuration, spell, or effect that you create. Now, this is just going to be icing on the cake, making your veils even more difficult to disable, or at the very least, protecting many of your other abjuration spells from being dispelled. This is going to really seal the deal for a lot of opponents who are going to have to deal with effectively a -7 on their dispel attempts against your abjurations at some point. At second level, you're going to gain Unanswerable Strike. This is going to give you a +2 bonus on caster level checks to counter or dispel abjuration spells. And at level 6, this bonus is going to increase to +4. So seeing as your Violet Veil is going to require a Dispel Magic to take down, if you wanted to, you simply could sit inside of your warding, potentially also protecting your party, and have a readied action ready to counter a Dispel Magic against you with your own Dispel Magic, and get a +4 bonus on the attempt as well, which is really going to swing things in your favor and help keep your allies protected, and pretty much immune to all aggression after a point. At level 4, you gain the other feature that really truly puts this prestige class above and beyond, which is reactive warding. This allows you to create a warding in response to an attack as an immediate action after your opponent begins the action, but before it is completed. So if you see an enemy warrior charging at you, as the example says, you can raise a warding to protect yourself. And the opponent, of course, does at least get the ability to stop the action. They do see what's going to happen, if they understand, that is, what's going on, and they can stop. So a character could try to attack you, and you could raise up your Violet Veil in response, and simply block out whatever they were going to do. With the Red Veil, you could simply raise that up reactively, and if they didn't choose not to attack you, they would just take that 20 points of fire damage, and you wouldn't have to worry about creating the warding and then not running into an encounter and wasting the duration. At level 6 or higher, you gain double warding, which lets you raise 2 veils at any one time, and this is only going to count as one use of your warding ability still. The less powerful effect, so the higher up color or lower down color, the red, for example, compared to the yellow, is going to be considered to be outside the more powerful effect. So the red effect is going to trigger first and be the first one that has to be dispelled, and then perhaps, say, the indigo veil on the inside would affect the attacker last, and would also be the one that would have to be second in order to be dispelled. At level 7, you're going to gain Kaleidoscopic Doom. This allows you to learn the secret of the awesome Kaleidoscopic Doom spell-like ability. Once per day as a standard action, you select a creature within 60 feet of you and turn magical effects currently affecting them against it. It functions like a greater dispel magic targeted on that creature, and then for every spell that's negated, the effect of one veil is visited on the victim as if they'd crossed it. It proceeds from the spectrum from red to violet, so a creature with 3 spells negated would be subjected to red, orange, and yellow veils. So if you target a creature that's cast a lot of buff spells on themselves, then you would be able to cause quite a lot of pain to them, potentially killing them if your dispel magic attempt succeeds. It doesn't say that the effects on them have to be beneficial ones. So if your party is able to load up the target with various non-beneficial spells, and you are then able to dispel them, then you would be able to cause an absolutely crushing cascade of effects on that target. And this is potentially something that you could do on your own, especially with the help of something like Quicken Spell of a lower level spell. You could stack up some other spells on the target affecting them, dispel them, and then cause an absolutely insane amount of damage and various other effects to apply to that creature all at once. So this is a devastating final effect. It's the first really offensive effect that the class has, but it's going to be able to do a lot if you're able to pull it off. This is pretty situational, but you're going to want to take the 7th level of this prestige class anyway, so that you can get that notorious Violet Veil. So this prestige class is extremely powerful. You are going to want to take all 7 levels, and you are going to want to build your character around taking this prestige class and making the most of its abilities. Being able to raise up 2 veils when you create a warding, and being able to do that reactively so that you can choose the correct ones for the scenario is going to be an absolutely insane ability for you to be able to do 4 times a day. But despite that limitation, you're still going to be able to protect yourself from most of the important effects that would be afflicting your party. You're going to be able to look at an encounter and pick 2 veils that are going to best suit the situation. So this is going to be really great at higher levels when your group's going to be targeted by a variety of attacks. And the veils do scale fairly well with what they're able to put a stop to. While perhaps the yellow veil is the least useful, perhaps the most situational, there are a lot of petrification effects out there, and they are pretty nasty. And most of them require fortitude saves, so as a wizard, being able to protect yourself from those, along with your party potentially, is going to be really great. So, the Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil is well known as an extremely powerful prestige class. There's really not a whole lot to say about it that hasn't already been said. This prestige class is going to get 5 stars for execution and 5 stars for concept. Perhaps you could look at this prestige class as deserving only 4 stars, simply because its power level can make the game not really any fun for the Dungeon Master, and potentially not much fun for the other players. They're not going to feel like they're in any danger in some cases. However, the flavorfulness of this prestige class, and the fun of being able to progress through these various veils, and the game knowledge that is going to be rewarded by this prestige class, being able to look at a monster, roll a knowledge check, or perhaps your Dungeon Master doesn't mind that you just know different things about some of these monsters, and it's going to let you pick the right sort of defense for the job. And it does allow you to continue your spellcasting progression throughout the entire prestige class, so you're not going to miss out on any features. As for things I would change about this prestige class, there aren't very many. Making all of the veils vulnerable to greater dispel magic or regular dispel magic isn't going to do a whole lot, as a lot of monsters still aren't going to have access to those spells, and is still going to trivialize a lot of encounters. Perhaps giving some sort of damage threshold for when one of these veils is destroyed might help tone down the power level a little bit and give normal monsters a chance at breaking through it, but that would go against the spirit of the prestige class in a lot of ways, which is meant to imitate prismatic sphere and prismatic wall, so that probably wouldn't be a good idea. Perhaps Unimpeachable Abjuration could go. While it is a really powerful and really useful ability, and while it does help your other abjuration spells as well, making it even more difficult to get rid of the veils for enemy creatures might be a little bit too much. It might be a little bit too far. But even without that, the prestige class is still going to be extremely powerful, and any attempts to, so to speak, balance the Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil is probably just going to ruin the prestige class. So that's going to be about it for this D&D 3.5 Prestige Class review. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and so on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on 3.5 Archive.